Welcome to the Here's My Story channel. My name is Eilish. My life is a nightmare because of my stepmom. She's a clean freak. The medical term for her condition is OCD. That is obsessive compulsive disorder. People with OCD become wildly obsessed with something. Some of them become fixated on cleaning their bodies. They wash their hands 1,000 times a day. They shower 100 times. Some people with OCD clean their houses in a compulsive manner. That, unfortunately, is exactly what my stepmom is obsessed with. She wants the house she lives in to be beyond clean. Because of my stepmom's condition, I have routine chores when I get back home from school. They're all about cleaning. Every day, I mop the floors. Then I wipe down the walls. For each room, I use different scented cleaning solutions. When my stepmom comes home from work, she checks every spot I cleaned one by one. She sniffs around to see if I used the correct cleaning solution. If she sees a tiny speck of dirt, she wants me to clean the whole house again. So I get really stressed during these routine checks. If she can't see any issues, she says, "Even though you are no good, you did everything just like I wanted you to. But this is not all you. You can only do this because I trained you so well. Otherwise, you could never pull it off on your own." My dad married this woman 3 years ago. I was living with my grandma at the time. When my grandma passed, I had no choice but to move in with my dad. One day, my dad said to me, "I can't take care of you on my own. I have to get married for your sake. You need a mother." I disagreed. "I'm not a kid anymore. I can take care of myself," I said to him. But he didn't listen to me. He abruptly went and married his colleague, Anna. My mom died while giving birth to me. She had epilepsy, so her body had never been particularly strong. Doctors told her that pregnancy might be especially dangerous, but my mom didn't listen to them. She passed away during labor without even meeting me. All I have left from my mom is this photo. Thanks to this, I know what my mom's face looked like, and I can see her in my dreams. I often visit her grave, too. I talk to her. If there's an important decision I need to make, I always ask her about it. Then she comes into my dream and tells me what she thinks. This may sound weird to you, but I really believe my mom communicates with me through dreams. My dad and stepmom work at a frozen pizza factory. My dad is in the purchasing department while my stepmom is the accounting manager. I heard them fighting one night. My dad was talking about going to jail. Their door was ajar. I tried to peek in and understand what was going on. My dad was yelling, "I did this because you wanted me to. Why do you want me to take the blame now? You are as responsible for this as I am." Shedding crocodile tears, my stepmom replied, "Why should we both go to jail? Who's going to take care of our daughter? You need to take the blame yourself for Eilish's sake." My dad looked down in silence. At that moment, I knew that he had accepted this to keep me safe. 1 week later, I found out about all the details. My stepmom had committed invoice fraud, so the records showed purchased goods that my dad in fact had not purchased for the factory. My stepmom then transferred payments for those goods into her own bank accounts. This is how they misappropriated the company's funds. But somehow, someone figured it out. Detectives began to look into the company records. When my stepmom figured out that they were going to get caught, she convinced my dad to take the blame. In his court deposition, my dad said, "My wife doesn't know anything. I tricked her. I'm the only one who's guilty here." The court gave my dad 6 years in prison for embezzlement. I was incredibly angry at my stepmom, but I couldn't do anything. I had no relatives I could go to. On paper, I did have a mother, but only because Anna was married to my dad. I couldn't seek shelter at a children's home. I had no choice but to live with her. My stepmom was now home all day. Previously, I would clean before she came home from work, but now she was constantly saying, "Don't go to school, clean the house. Everything's so dirty, I feel like I'm going to choke." After a while, I had to leave school for good. Now I was getting up in the morning and cleaning until midnight. Normally, I dream of my mom at least one day a week, but during that time, she visited me every night in my dreams. She wouldn't talk to me, she just gestured for me to come to her. Obviously, she wanted me to visit her grave, but it was impossible for me to leave the house. My stepmom kept showing me spots to clean around the house. If I was gone for 5 minutes, she would start yelling and screaming. One morning, I mustered up the courage to say, "I want to visit my mom. I'll be back in a couple of hours." My stepmom burst out laughing. "No offense, but I think your mom's bones must have completely decomposed by now. Why do you want to see her grave? That's not your mom. It's just a stone with your mom's name on it," she replied. I was really upset. I began to cry. My stepmom showed me the door, saying, "Go cry outside. You're ruining the house with your dirty teardrops." I ran outside. I had completely lost control. I kept running and sobbing at the same time. Normally, I go to the cemetery by bus. That day, I ran for nearly 2 hours without stopping. Finally, I reached the cemetery. I hugged my mom's gravestone. "No, you're not just a stone. You're my dear mom," I mumbled between sobs. At that second, I heard a sound like a whistle. It was coming from up above. When I looked up, I saw a red object zooming down towards the ground. It came closer and closer until it landed about 30 feet from me and sank into the ground. A hole had formed at that spot, and smoke was coming out of it. As I walked closer, I realized that it was the heat that made the object seem red to me. As it cooled down, it turned into a green rock. It wasn't very big, almost the size of a small turtle. I was staring at the rock, trying to figure out what it was. The only explanation I could come up with was that this was a meteorite. It was a fireball that came from outer space. I always thought they looked just like regular rocks, but this one was bright green. I was too curious not to touch it, even though I knew that was a dangerous thing to do. It was still hot, but not hot enough to burn my hand. It was perfectly smooth. Perhaps it had spent years traveling around space before entering the Earth's orbit and finally landing right next to me. A small piece had separated from the rock due to impact. I held it up into the sunlight. It looked like a diamond, but I didn't think there were any diamonds in space. Plus, diamonds are clear. This rock, on the other hand, was green. I went back to my mom's grave. "Even though you're far away, you always take care of me. I don't know what to do with this meteorite, but I'm sure this was the reason why you called me here," I said. Then I dug a hole in my mom's grave and buried the rock in it. The small piece from the meteorite was in my pocket. I had to go and find out what it was. I could look it up online, but I'd left my phone at home. How was I going to go and get it back when my stepmom was at home? I had an idea. I picked up some dirt from my mom's grave and filled my pockets. When I came home, my stepmom leapt to her feet. Her eyes flashed with anger. "You went to see your mom's bones, didn't you? Didn't I tell you not to go?" she screamed. Without saying anything, I took out some dirt from my pocket and sprinkled it on the floor. She looked around bewildered. "What are you doing? Stop ruining my house!" she yelled. I ran into the kitchen. I threw a handful of soil up in the air. I did the same in all the other rooms and finished all the soil that I took from my mom's grave. As I was going to my room, my stepmom had already begun mopping the floors, crying, "My house is ruined. It's filthy." Because of her condition, she felt compelled to deep clean the house. I picked up my phone. I packed a few of my things in a small suitcase. I walked past my stepmom as I was leaving. She was deliriously trying to clean the floors. "Eilish, come here! Clean up your mess! Help me!" she cried, but I obviously did not stop. I slammed the door behind me and left. I sat down on a park bench and started doing some research online. Nothing came up when I searched for green meteorite, so I searched for green gemstone. When I clicked on the images, I saw that they definitely looked like my meteorite. Finally, I figured out that mine was a gemstone called jadeite. It was the second most expensive gemstone in the world. Blue diamond was at the top of the list. A 1-carat blue diamond was worth $4 million. Jadeite had the second spot, and it was worth $3 million. Then I looked up the definition of a carat. 10 carats were equal to 2 grams. If the small piece of rock that I was carrying with me weighed 20 grams, then that meant I was carrying $300 million in my pocket right now. My heart skipped a beat. I mumbled to myself, "Since the meteorite in my mom's grave is much bigger, I'm a billionaire." Using another stone, I divided the rock in my pocket into even smaller parts. No jeweler would buy a precious stone worth $300 million from a teenager. It wasn't that difficult to sell one of the smaller pieces. When the jeweler examined the stone, he said, "I've never seen such a flawless jadeite in my life," before handing me my money. Apparently, jadeite is so expensive because it is very rare. But in space, asteroids that are made of diamonds or precious stones like this exist. There are even space mining companies that take advantage of these. Even if it's a super rare event, Asteroid pieces like mine do fall onto Earth. I had a $1 billion meteorite fall next to me, and the only reason I happened to be there at that moment was my dear mom. I had become a billionaire. When you have so much money, you can do anything you like. I bought myself a huge mansion. I had a safe installed in my bedroom. I put the meteorite, my mom's biggest gift to me, inside that safe. Now I simply cut off a piece of it whenever I need money. With one of those pieces, I bought the frozen pizza factory that my dad and my mom used to work at. As the owner of the factory, I withdrew all the allegations towards my dad. I hired a great team of lawyers and pretty soon got my dad out of prison. My dad and I live together now. I haven't seen my stepmom since. My dad went to her house to get the divorce papers signed. He said nothing had changed in regard to her condition, but now she had to do all the cleaning herself since I wasn't around anymore. She said some horrible things about me at first. When she found out that I was a billionaire, her attitude suddenly shifted. I will get help. Bring our beautiful daughter home. Let's be a happy family again, she begged. My dad would have none of it. You ruined my life. Thankfully, my daughter saved me from prison, and now I'm saving myself from you, he said. By the way, I think I forgot to tell you, the house I bought is very close to my mom. I visit her every morning. I take my time talking to her. She comes to me at nighttime in my dreams to